Welcome back to another Final Fantasy XIV video, and today we're going to be taking a look at desire paths. Desire paths are everywhere, and video games are no exception. And during the making this, I have come to the conclusion that Warriors of Light hate stairs. While I will be mostly sticking to desire paths as you know it, there will be things rules a little here and there, and similar things when you think of the players intentionally trying to. First up on the list, a very well-known one, and one that everyone will encounter, is in the Labyrinth of the Ancients. Somehow, in a linear dungeon, people still found a way to optimize their way to the desire path. People constantly jumping off the stair edge when there's two perfectly fine stairs, left and right. And I am guilty of this myself. Lucky through here though, even if they didn't let us jump down the stairs, this place is so dark that I could easily see people just not seeing the stairwell. With how often people have to do the Crystal Tower, I'm not surprised at all that people wanted to find the quickest way out there. This next one, I feel like a lot of people are aware of, but we'll most likely see a lot of older heads remembering this one and still even using it today. Right next to the Gridanian Aetheryte, and leading to the Roost, the place where many a new player will go, is this little crevice that you can go in between this gazebo? Watchtower? Attached to the Roost. Personally, I don't use this route anymore as much, just because I like seeing the people along the way in their outfits. And unless you need to go to the end as a more late game player, you don't have much other reason to go here unless you just like going to the airship for immersion or just to save a little gil on travels. Unless of course you have been farming your Aetheryte tickets, which you should be. You thought I was joking about the stairs? Well, I wasn't, because we're already at another set of stairs. Here in the Ktisis Hyperboreia, we get greeted with a pair of stairs immediately, but unlike the ones in Labyrinth of the Ancients, you cannot directly jump off the front. I guess they didn't want players taking damage right into a pack of trash mobs. So they are very aware that we are taking the fastest route possible, and I find that rather funny. In a bit of a small note, though, they do try to convince you to use the stairs by putting a lore book right on the midway part of the stairs. The lore book itself reads more like a traveler's pamphlet than it does anything meaningful to the player themselves. Well, I didn't think I'd be able to do it, but I found another reason for us to go back into Cutter's Cry. About halfway through the dungeon in the wet sands, we have another more untraditional desire path. And this one doesn't really exist anymore, but I wanted to talk about a version of it that once did. In the wet sands section of this dungeon, the player has to fight some mobs in order to make the shifting sands spawn, allowing them to go to the next chamber within the wet sands. And this is for the second one as well. Back in the day, we did not need to kill any mobs to go for the shifting sands. So what would happen is the tank, if they were experienced in this dungeon and learned some rather bad habits from other players, would run all the way to the shifting sand, tank everything that is in the path, and then let the rest of their team slip through the shifting sand while they held aggro, and then they themselves would go into the shifting sands. I really like this as a expression of player knowledge, yet the reality is this dungeon is so early in the experience that it ended up becoming a negative experience for a lot of new players who did not understand what was happening, often causing them to faint constantly, get left behind, the whole shebang. So eventually we got what is a better version of it, where now the shifting sands is locked behind certain mobs. Another sort of sad part about this dungeon in these wet sands is there is treasure in both these chambers that most players will now never see because of this. Though, if you are tanking this place, I do recommend leading down the sides where the treasure is, just so that new player can get a little bit extra fun in their dungeon. As we head over to the Sunken Temple of Qarn, this whole dungeon is full of optional routes and paths that the player will likely never go down nowadays. As soon as we enter this dungeon, we were first greeted with the Warden in front of us at the Sun Terrace. And this shows the solution to the final puzzle before the boss in the Inquisitor's Measure. This leads to a really cool treasure room that can make for a very exciting moment. I would love to see newer dungeons do things like these. As it has turned, it seems like this is very unlikely in the future. Though, in a way, we somewhat get this with variant and criterion dungeons. So we still have some way to explore in dungeons, even if the newer ones can be a little stale outside of visuals and boss fights. Due to how long this dungeon is, we hardly ever see players exploring it due to their desire to reach the end. This is a really fun and engaging mechanic in this dungeon, since there are multiple other statuettes you can gather as you're going along the path, which can lead to you very likely putting in the incorrect statuettes at the end if the player was not paying attention or had the forethought to memorize the statues at the beginning. Even the devs saw the player's desire to sprint through this dungeon and made it easier to defeat the statue guardians that you would need to kill on top of the glowing platforms in order to unlock doors that barred the way for progression, as well as for side paths where there was additional loots and the statuettes that you needed for the final puzzle. In a bit of an ironic moment, though, placing the wrong statuettes within the final puzzle can result in many enemies spawning. In a sort of funny twist, this could end up making the dungeon take longer than if you would have grabbed the correct statues, or sometimes just as long as if you did not grab them. So it's a bit of food for thought if you ever do get this queued into your roulette to maybe let the new players see all these fun little things they can do in the dungeon. Shake up those cobwebs because we're heading to another ancient location, Haukke Manor. After the first boss past Red Hall, as we go through this ivy door, we are greeted with a very tempting ledge with a perfectly functioning stairwell. In an earlier iteration of this dungeon, the stair path used to have enemies on it, but now there are no enemies on them. So before, when there were enemies on the stairs, it was even more tempting to jump straight directly off this ledge. But for the unprepared, there were enemies waiting to ambush you as you fell down. It makes me think if the reason they removed the enemies from this stairwell is for that exact reason, because they wanted to encourage players to use the stairs, as funny as that sounds. But that's not going to stop a 14 player, because they hate stairs, and they're going to jump straight off that balcony, even if it kills them. Anywhere but within arm's length is the arm of the father, Alexander. Now this one feels like the devs were setting us up. As we go past the first set of trash mobs, the top floor that we are on, the stairwell is blocked by rubble. But as we go down to the next floor, the next set of stairs is completely clear, but the railing is still broken. It really feels like they want us to use these divider paths now, and are simply seeing if we are well-mannered or not. Do you want to take those few extra steps, or do you want to fight Pepsi Man right now? Flying up next is the Arc Void. This one you might not really think about when you're doing it, and could just be doing it subconsciously. Shortly after the water trash mobs, and before the first manta ray boss, we have this crashing structure falling from above, giving us a path forward. This one, when I was getting footage for it, was somewhat funny. Most people did not take the desire path and instead went all the way to the edge to follow the ramp down correctly. This ended up being the opposite of a desire path from the few times I went in here to get footage for it. It goes to show that sometimes the Eorzeans can behave for once. The Gold Saucer. This place is just littered with paths, encouraging the player to run amok and not follow civil order. From the stairs and the ramps surrounding the main counter to even the connecting paths having decorative features on the sides, such as stained glass and even little water river trails. Not only this, there are gatekeepers scattered everywhere, directly teleporting you to exactly where you need to go. Don't even think about moving here. They might as well give you a personal teleporter. Oh, they'd have that with the Aetherites. Yeah, that's right. There's also Aetherites in here if for some reason you wanted to move even less. Truly, the only way they could make this even more convenient to get around is by giving you the ability to use mounts in here. We're just that one step away at this point. In the main stage, they also have a very short rail, perfect for jumping up. Now we come to one of my favorite examples, a very classic depiction of it. The park featuring the silent Monopteros. We got 2 paths leading to the silent Monopteros. The likelihood of players using these is very small. Unless they're coming from the Studium Aetherite, they would have no reason to take the roads, since it is likely they are coming from either the main Aetherite or the inn at the Baldessian Annex, which, if they went that way, they would have to take quite a elongated path to come here correctly. When I was looking into this place, I got a little sidetracked because of this place being called the Monopteros, but I won't go into that here. I would recommend not looking that up, as you will lose your mind with how specific it is. You know what? You're already this far. I'm going to tell you what a Monopteros is. Monopteros, also called a Monopteron or a cyclostyle, is a circular colonnade. You know what a colonnade is? Supporting a roof, but without any walls. Very specific. There can't be walls. Unlike a pholos, it's not a pholos. Don't confuse it. In its wider sense as a circular building. So it's not a building. It does not have walls that make it a cella, and it can't have a room inside. This is such a very specific structure, and I just find that amusing. Thank you for watching another top 10 thingies of Final Fantasy XIV. Up top, another top 10 video. Down here, another video. Over here, subscribe. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.